We talked about it at work about the fact that we haven't done a live stream.
Yeah.
But a couple of people are like, I miss when you were just sitting there dancing and going back and
Great.
forth. And I'm like, wow.
Well, if Biblical Chili is known for anything, that's our spectacular intros, which is right now. Well, hi everybody. It's been a little while for a live cast. We've had several people who have asked for it again, and several topics come up. And so, you know what? We're just diving in head first. We're going back to a Thursday at 7. So I guess let's just go around the table and introduce ourselves. Many people know who we are, but we'll just kind of go around. This is Justin.
This is Sully.
I'm Anna.
And I'm Pat.
Hey, Pat. Now, you did mention that you have your own podcast. What is that podcast called, and how can people reach you?
Yeah, it's called Millennial God. It's on pretty much anywhere people listen to podcasts. So Apple, Spotify, YouTube, pretty much everywhere that people listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. All right. So today's question or topic, or however you'd like to verbalize this. So forgive me if anybody sees me over here, I'm not playing a game. I'm trying to keep track of the comments if they're coming in. So, and like I said, this was kind of on the fly. We didn't do a whole lot of prep on this one. This was just like a Friday night. We're like, let's just do it again. So let's just do it again. So the question, so we're titling this, or at least I titled this, Politically Charged. And the question came up last Friday when we were recording, and the question was I don't remember exactly how we worded it, Susanna, but I think you were the one that brought it up. And it was something like, how do we reach a generation that's so politically charged, or how do we reach the generation today that feels so like, I don't know how to put this, so sensitive to certain questions, or if, like, let's say if I'm speaking with Sully and we happen to disagree, all of a sudden there are labels, put on people, and it's now all of a sudden you're a hater because you don't agree with my worldview or whatever it happens to be. So that's what I'm saying. I don't even know how to word this because there's no simple way of putting it, because I can't put a blanket statement over everyone. It seems to just be either certain generations or just the certain political climates at times.
I would say, like, just how do we navigate life right now, like, as believers? Like, how do we lovingly try to have discussions with people in today's political climate? So either with things going on, like just all the different political issues, like abortion, like try to talk to someone about abortion, like, I mean, do you comment on people's Facebook posts, like, or do you just like, I mean, just how do you reach people, because you can't even approach them? It's really difficult.
Right, and it is. So I guess with that, does anybody just want to dive in head first? I got a lot of notes, actually. I started studying this last week. So
really,
about just how to talk to people.
Yeah, I can take a shot at it, anyways, because this is something that I think that for me, I've changed a lot over the years. Whenever I was a political science major in college, and so obviously I was like heavily involved in politics. I was down in DC all the time. I was meeting with politicians. I was very heavily involved. And then coming out of college, kind of, and going through a little bit of a career, I think I've changed a lot in my approach towards both online and in person with people. In that I really think for me, I'm only willing to engage in a conversation if somebody is humble enough to have that conversation, whether that be online or in person. If right off the bat someone is highly hostile, very aggressive with whatever their beliefs are, then for me, it's never been worth my time. Online is probably the biggest place that I've seen that, where for a long time I would try to have conversations with people on comment sections or in messages personally or anything like that, and there was like absolutely zero fruit that ever came from any of that. I don't think anybody, like, I never changed my position. None of them ever changed their position, or even necessarily like understood the other person's any better. And so I think in person it's a lot different than online. But me personally, like, I've changed a lot in that I don't even, if there's a comment, like a negative comment, I get negative comments all the time on my podcast and on just online activity and that kind of thing. And at this point, I don't even respond to the comments. I just let them be and let them think what they think. And then if I have an opportunity to have a discussion in person, it's usually much better.
So do you think it's the approach, or do you think it's the medium, whether in person or?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of both.
Okay.
Like I'll give you an example. Is I made a comment on one podcast episode where I said something to the effect of, if you spend your time talking more about how bad Joe Biden is than you do about how good God is, then your faith is probably misplaced, right? I shot that up on Instagram and or the video of that up on Instagram, and out of nowhere, I started getting all sorts of comments about how not only how I was not a Christian and but also how I don't care about our country and things like that. And like I mentioned before, I've got a decade of military service behind me, and so people like that, what do I even comment to somebody like that?
Well, it's one of those things where I believe the Bible calls it, a fool is proved his folly, or something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
or prove a fool is folly.
Yeah,
like you just proved the point just by what you said and their reaction to it.
Yeah, and so somebody, the platform certainly has a role to play, I think, because one, people hide behind anonymity. They hide behind they can say anything, and the classic saying goes, and not get punched in the face, right? But even not even engage in a discussion. They can just sort of put something out there and let it be, and keep it anonymous, or keep it behind a Facebook wall or whatever it may be. But I do think the environment has changed as well. It's not only that a platform provides people that, but I think even in the street today, whenever we do things like abortion ministry, people are much more willing to threaten to kill us than I think they probably would have been 10 or 20 years ago. Whenever all we're doing is, we're very far from some of the abortion ministry that you've seen, probably, where they're like yelling and screaming. Like, we literally just offer to pray for young women and provide them with whatever resources necessary. We're trying to be as loving as possible, and have people threaten you, have people try to hit you with their car and things like that. So not only is it the platform, but I do think the environment and sort of our culture has taken a shift towards being more aggressive and being much more violent, for sure, as well.
I mean, especially with like the different things, the riots and everything else. Now, I know the fact that in the past there was Detroit riots, LA riots, and everything else. But some of the things, like, they actually had like legit beliefs and legit actual reasons to get upset. I mean, the Rodney King beating and everything else. The political climate is just, I told one person, they asked, because there was a question that I seen on TikTok that made me laugh so hard. Goes, you got to ask everybody what their zombie apocalypse plan is. And I'm like, I'm laughing so hard, because it's like, that is a good question just to ask people. And somebody looked at me and goes, why? That's fake. This is that. No. Zombies are actually people that are in the mob mentality. So the fact that if there's any kind of thing that goes wrong, people become into the mob mentality, where they don't actually think as an individual, they think as a group. And that's a lot of things.
That's
that are
so
going,
true.
like, and people look at me, they're like, oh my goodness, you're absolutely right. So now when I speak to people, like, I'm not asking you to see if like the zombies are gonna walk and take your brains. No, I'm talking about the people that have no minds, that actually go follow the TikTok trends and everything else. Don't get me wrong, I'm on TikTok. I send Justin TikToks all the time.
He's sold.
But I'm not horrible, and like, I have an actual mind where I can go. I had one of the guys at work, me and him got into a discussion. Okay, we got into the political climate. He voted for Joe Biden. Me and him go back and forth on that. I'm like, dude, I honestly don't care. Both parties, it's just, you got to take the good with the bad. Just because a whole bunch of people voted for one person, okay, I got to deal with it. Go about my day.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it. I'm not caring. I'm actually not caring about the fact that somebody won and I didn't. Don't mind that. Did I vote for the other guy? Yeah.
When it comes to so I don't even know how to approach this one. So when it comes to speaking to those who may be politically charged, and obviously just walking up and talking to somebody, you don't necessarily know if they have that type of mentality. Is there I almost want to say tactic, or is there like a appropriate manner in approaching people? You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I would say it only takes one or two sentences to start really getting a feel for whether someone is
motivated or not.
Well, if somebody who actually wants to have a conversation with you, or someone who's just, ready to strike.
Yeah.
Ready to be offended, if I can say that. I mean, and I'm not trying to offend people. I'm really not. We do live in a very sensitive society.
Oh yeah.
Very sensitive when it comes to if I don't know. Maybe we can approach it by let's approach it by that. Why is it that the society is in that manner where and this isn't everybody. This is just it seems like the society as a majority seems to be in that manner where it's my identity is attached to ABC, XYZ, whatever they decide to plug into. And if you speak against whatever XYZ, ABC, whatever that I'm attached to as part of my identity, all of a sudden you hate me. Why?
I know. I have an idea.
Go for it.
I mean, I guess politics maybe have always been heated, but like I personally feel like it's our culture where people don't have firm, proper like attachments to their parents, and so like they don't have these strong family attachments. A lot about like parenting styles and stuff have changed drastically. Like in the like 40s and 50s and 60s, like people were told, don't breastfeed your babies, don't even, all this sleep training stuff came out. Like all these things literally changed so much. Like the doctors had all these ideas about how you need to raise your kids that really like go against parental instincts. And I mean, this is like a totally different topic, but a lot of that stuff is how, like parent or children need to be super firmly attached to their parents. And that happens for like, 5 years of their life. And if they're not, they're going to find that attachment with someone else. So it's going to be a different authoritative figure later in their life, or it's going to be their political beliefs, or it's going to be whatever their religious beliefs are later, or it's going to be their school teachers and what they're taught in school. Like people are going to find that attachment somewhere else. And then it's unhealthy and their identity is attached to that thing. So when you're attacking their belief, you're attacking them because that's like literally what they feel like their life source attachment to is.
So you're saying it could be like I almost want to say, and I know this is going to be really strong verbiage, but the degradation of the familial infrastructure.
Yeah.
More or less. Okay.
I mean, that's what I think. Like you have these people who are like ripped out of the home so young, and that like wasn't really a thing before, I don't know, like the 50s. Like I feel like most moms stay home with their kids, and not that like you do whatever and make it work, but just the idea that like you had to do it a certain way, was really strong then, and now like the opposite is the norm where people don't really watch their kids, but like
yeah,
that changed so much. So now the family structure changed so much.
Yeah. Family structure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that gets to really the root of the issue that you guys are talking about. Is just like people's identity. They're seeking for an identity, which if you grew up in a family with like strong family ties, who laid a foundation of obedience to God and faithfulness and things like that, then that's where your identity is rooted, and it's kind of easier to fall back on that. Versus if you had a family who both your parents were kind of like, hey, we're gonna send you off to daycare and then off to school and then off to college, and you never have that identity rooted in you through your family. I think that certainly plays a role in it for sure, which is probably why I wouldn't call myself a political person anymore, that I align with one side or another, but I would say that's probably why you see conservative ideals generally trend towards things that are more conservative, is because that's what it's rooted in. It's kind of rooted in that family, the sort of familial nature. But yeah, I would agree with a lot of what you said.
I didn't even think about that.
So getting on to the same thing is the fact that back in when I was little, the gangs were a big thing, like the Crips, the Bloods, and everything else. it was a really big thing, especially for an inner city kid living next to Pontiac and Detroit area. So I was staying away from them, but I tried to figure out why that these were so big. It didn't make any sense to me. It's because they found family, because they came from a broken home and they found family. So these people that are going, my mom and dad don't love me because they didn't get this, but this guy's cool on the internet. He's a part of my family now. That's the way that these kids are going. And it's not because they're just seeking other values and other things from, I want to say, materialistic things, and not actually like the whole idea of, hey, oh, look at all the friends I got on TikTok. I can tell you right now, most of the people that I have on my Facebook, I have actually met in real life. There's probably 6 that I have not met. And I have
on your Facebook?
I think so. I mean, I do have like over 300 and some odd friends. So I was just like,
I only say that because I'm on there so rarely. I don't know who I'm friends with anymore.
no, I think that's where I send all the TikToks to.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and that's a good point. All you guys are bringing up, because I've always wondered that, like why. Because when it comes to the identities, there's a lot more identities than there used to be. Obviously, like you're talking about, just like the social media identities,
Right.
You know, well, who do you like on YouTube or whatever,
Right.
And who do you follow? And then so there's a group there. Your sexual orientation identity, your now gender identity, your how you stand on, going back to kind of the topic at hand. The political issue identity, like obviously the one right now, the Roe versus Wade, obviously is a very heavy one. I was trying to go through it without saying this, but it's a very heavy one right now. No matter what side you're on, it's heavy, you know? So I'm just saying, like, the identities are there, but why, I guess, why is it that if I say, okay, so Sully, I don't agree with this particular lifestyle of yours. Okay. Is it just because some of the familial values are breaking that Sully could get angry with me now because all of a sudden he would place me in the sense of, now Justin hates me because he doesn't agree with, but we can't even have a conversation I'm just saying many instances, we can't even have a conversation because now all of a sudden this person doesn't see life the way I see it. And, you know, now everything's busted. And now we can't have that conversation. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, is it just the familial disconnect that is causing this, or is there just more to it?
Well, it certainly breaks down your worldview, I think, which is what people aren't comfortable with. I think people aren't comfortable with having their worldview
like challenged.
And I think this isn't necessarily the case. It's pretty easy to target people in maybe the the transgender movement or the pride movement and things like that, because you see online videos. But I would say even among the Christian church, right? It's if you were to go to any major Christian church and challenge them on substitutionary atonement, for example, I'm not saying substitutionary atonement is right or wrong, but if you were to challenge a church or members of a church on that, then what would their reaction be? It would likely be somewhat hostile, would be my assumption, even pastors and things like that. So I think for most people, there's a tendency, there's a tribalism for sure, where people want to be on the right team, and they think that being on the right team gives them some sort of moral justification. That if you start to challenge that and you start to break down that worldview, then now they don't have that sort of moral high ground. They don't have that cause that they're fighting for. They're not rooted in that same identity, and so now they don't know what to do. If they're stuck with a worldview that is challenged and isn't accurate, then what do they believe? And so I think it's much easier, just sort of as a defense mechanism, to push back and not even not even allow you to get your argument out, to not even hear your argument. So then I know that I can just stay in my box. I can stay in my team and say, well, my worldview is the right worldview, and stay in that place, But it kind of goes back to humility and pride at the end of the day. A lot of times is, are you humble enough to listen to what somebody else has to say, and at least consider it, and take, maybe understand where they're coming from or their perspective, or are you so prideful that you are just like, no, I must be right. I determine what truth is. I determine what right
good
is.
point.
And yeah, that's a lot of what I think we see, is people are so prideful in their own worldview that it can't be challenged.
Yeah, well, what you're saying, that reminds me of the verse that talks about how, it's the enemy that divides people and divides into groups and sects, and it's God who unifies, and how God is one. And if we looked at each other more like we're all one, we're all human, we're all created by God, and didn't play the whole, I have to be in the right group, I have to be in the right team, and we focus on what we had in common instead of like what we had, what our differences were, then like those conversations would go way better. But naturally, like our flesh and our instincts like do just want to divide ourselves into these groups.
Yeah. Did I lose you guys?
I feel like Justin's talking.
Oh, you're.
Am I muted? Oh, sorry, guys.
Good job.
I'm sorry, my bad. No, I was just saying that was a really good point, Pat. That it seems though, and once again, this is going to sound really harsh, but it seems like if you can't, and although mind you, I'm going to tell you right now, as part of my testimony personally, I was that way when I was much younger, and I realized that I mean very quickly, if I can't even have a conversation with somebody and somebody challenge my faith, then what kind of faith do I have? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If my faith in it, honestly, whatever it is, if I believe that this identity that I'm placing myself as is my worldview, is my faith, is my connection to Justin, and if it's that shaky that nobody can even challenge it, that it's just our reaction is to whatever it is, lash out, spew a whole bunch of facts to try to downplay somebody, insults, whatever it is, then, I mean, forgive me, but that's a really shaky identity. If we can't take it, if we can't have a little bit of thick skin and say, yeah, go ahead, tear it down, try it, talk to me, let's have the conversations. Let's have the debates. Let's have the whatever it calls for. Because I mean, you could probably put almost anything in this realm when it comes to the conversations with this kind of stuff, because it's, I don't know, you can put almost anything in it.
I was watching another podcast on YouTube right before I came here, and it was talking about video games and the fact that they had an issue with one of the D&D people because it came out and they started coming through, and they came out in a group setting somewhere where they looked like Indiana Jones. You know what? Their fans got upright because the fact that it shows, what is it? Basically what they were doing was they're talking about how the fact that they're conquerors. They just had hats on that it was explorer hats.
Oh, that look, yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't like anything like legitimately like, oh, we destroyed or Christopher Columbus or this or that. Those debates have made me laugh for the longest time. It's just like, are you serious? It was part of history.
Right. But
like, let's get all uppity over this, please.
So how would we approach people like this though? Like if somebody has, let's say it's a sensitive topic, like a gender identity or like a sexual orientation identity, and we just want to talk to them about it. How would you guys approach people in whether to witness to them, give a testimony, just have a conversation with them that, I don't know, like how would you approach if, let's say you said something that triggered someone?
Yeah. I think for me, the number one step is always prayer. Because a lot of times I tend to try to lean on my own logic without fully understanding maybe somebody else's perspective or their life experiences. And so praying that God will, humble them so that they listen to what I have to say, or that I can learn something from them for sure. I think that's step number one. But just probably a couple months ago, I was having I was having dinner with a couple of homeless people that we do some ministry with, and one of them brought up that she thought that I would hate her because she was gay. And this is a girl who goes to Bible study with us. She, comes to the church and everything like that. And I think for a lot of people, that can kind of be, for a lot of Christians, they could see that, or they could have a very negative interaction there, where they know that maybe homosexuality is wrong, but they don't necessarily know how to respond to somebody saying, well, I'm gay, or I'm transgender, or, whatever it may be. And the first response has to be, well, I don't hate you just because you and I disagree on something. That's not the right answer. Now, I will tell you, what I think the Bible says about that specific issue, whether that be, homosexuality or transgenderism or abortion or anything. I'll tell you why I believe that, but then also be willing to listen to their side of the story, because, there are people out there with life experiences that were very harmful and very traumatic and things like that,
right?
That they feel maybe caused them to be a certain way or to have certain mental issues. And it's not until you open up with that, I don't hate you, I still care about who you are as a person, and I still want us to be friends. It's not until you have that sort of initial conversation that then you can be like, okay, well, what's kind of behind all of this? What's driving these feelings, these emotions that you're having? Is it just, if it's like a 14-year-old girl, maybe it's her entire friend group is calling themselves transgender and she's just jumping on the train. If it's a 55-year-old homeless woman, then maybe it's a significant amount of trauma that happened as a child. And now you can say, okay, well, maybe we can get you in to see a psychologist or something like that may be able to, kind of work through some of those problems. And maybe the root of it isn't that you're actually transgender or gay. Maybe the root of it is that you just have from a long past of trauma, you just don't fully understand what relationships are supposed to be like. And, upon getting a better understanding of that, maybe your perspective changes. And, I always go back to as well, with a lot of things, pride, like sin is pride at the end of the day, and believing that
Amen.
You can't necessarily personally break somebody of that. So kind of just going back to my step one of prayer, praying to God that He humbles them to understand His intent for them, because you may not be able to break somebody of their pride, but God may be able to, so. Yeah.
And that's awesome, because the thing is, though, is you just said the same thing from before about somebody being humble. If we're humble enough to approach people like this, usually that breaks the ice, dude.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
like it breaks it right there, because if I don't know, there was one time I worked at my testimony. I worked at I was on one of the Informers, and there was a new guy there. It was when IAM.
Yeah.
Came over. I can't say the name. Came over and they transferred. Anyway, we work in a factory. So anyway, I was training some guy, and I had him. He was a captivated audience for 2 weeks. I was training him. So, oh man, the guy's name, I still remember his name. His name is David. And the thing is what we ended up doing, just going off of what you were saying, Pat, about the humility enough just to say, maybe my own, belief or identity or whatever could be broken, or maybe I just need a better understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just to have that humility, to have that conversation with somebody in loving kindness, it opened him up, because I ended up finding out that the reason why he was more or less a gentle atheist or a hostile agnostic. I don't know what kind of category you'd put that in between. Like, he's somewhere in there. And because he said he's been on so many spiritual journeys, and he railed on, and he was true. Like he was studied Buddhism for like many months, and then Hinduism, and then he was a Christian for a long time, and then became a Catholic for a long time, and then he went to his Native American roots and went on a spirit quest. And he's like, I've never heard God in any of this stuff. And, he was very hostile toward that kind of stuff, but he wasn't mean. If you wanted to be a Christian, fine, whatever, that's your thing. but he had a lot of ammunition to shoot at me because I was a believer, because I'm a follower of Christ. So he had a lot of ammunition. I mean, you can tell, and just but just having that conversation and walking him through his logic of where he was at was strange. Like you could see in his own eyes, and the conversation every day changed because he was able to walk himself down his own logic of why he's denying God, like all gods, like, nope, not even going to give it a shot anymore. And, obviously simple questions like, okay, well, what if the real God of Scripture is a God that you've actually never gotten to know? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like those type of logical, like just conversations kind of thing. And I mean, that's my tactic. I mean, I talk to people like that just to, I kind of hold their hand and walk them through their own, I almost want to say fallacies, or just walk them through. Okay. So like, and I guess the common thing is, I have a daughter. Okay. She's not a teenager yet. So I'm waiting for the years. I'm just waiting for it. So just, one of those things where, Dad, let's say she wanted to go outside and dressed in a very provocative manner, we'll say. And yeah, but all my friends are doing this. Okay. So as a parent, what's the logical reaction to that? Come on, guys.
If they jumped off of a bridge.
Right. If your friends are going to jump off a bridge, now all of a sudden your reasoning for doing something seems utterly ridiculous. Just holding their hand, walking them through it a lot of times. Oh, well, yeah.
I actually
maybe not.
I had that with actually a Aryan Brotherhood guy.
Aryan, oh, that sounds like cultic.
Oh yeah, he was at work.
Cultish.
I was training him, and it was great because he goes, abortion should be legal and this and that because like crack babies and this and that. I looked at him, I stopped, and I go, you do realize the fact that my mother was on drugs heavily when I was being born, right? I'm considered one of those crack babies. And he's like, oh.
Okay, wait, stop. I'm going to ask you a question. Would you have rather been aborted because you went through all that? Or would you have rather lived?
Even with my childhood being so dramatic and traumatizing to the point where I still have nightmares to this day, I'd rather be alive.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, crap, I was even adopted at one point in time in my life. I mean, it's just, again, you got to look at it as the fact that many times somebody has it worse than you. And there's a reason why they believe in what they believe in, like you said.
Actually, and that's awesome. That's a good point. There's a reason why. And going off of what you were saying, Pat, there's got to be something deeper than just
right.
Yeah, than just this one thing that they're identifying with.
Yeah, and going. Sorry, go ahead. I guess with religion specifically, a lot of times whenever I talk to people about God, they almost will always revert back to their experiences with either a church or their perception of the church, right? Which is largely corruption, that the church is a money-making scheme, not meant to actually help people, which, I can quote the stats all day about where Christian money actually goes because it's not towards, people who need it. And people who don't believe in God can reference a lot of those same things and point to those same issues. That is where, going back to just people's experiences, people fall back to those experiences and say, well, because this church hurt me, or because, I know of all these churches who aren't actually doing anything for our local community, that must mean that God doesn't exist because their whole belief system is clearly wrong. And so kind of breaking people that sort of illogical fallacy right there of just saying, okay, well, is the creator of the universe, this being, this invisible being that created everything, that provides you sunshine so that you can live, and oxygen so you can live, does that same creator, is he defined by the fact that the pastor down the road from you doesn't give money to the local community? Like, is this ultimate being defined by that singular person's ineptitude, or his failure to truly understand what his role is? And most people will acknowledge that, well, no, of course, at least the idea of God can't be limited to just singular people carrying things out, which I see this fallacy a lot with people whenever they talk about Muslims, because they'll say, well, look at the Muslim terrorists in the Middle East,
Right.
It's like, okay, well, the Christian church has been just as bad throughout Christianity. So
right, like you can't.
bad people doing bad things doesn't justify a worldview. It just says that bad people do bad things.
Right.
Okay, I do have to make a rebuttal on that because I do like some of their religious tactics and their beliefs. If the fact that Justin comes to my house and actually says, and this is in the Hindu Kush area in the backwoods, granted, but if Justin comes to my house and he says the fact that he needs to stay the night, I have to take care of him and protect him and feed him for 3 days, no matter what it is. No matter if Justin's actually like a hated enemy, he stole my goat or something else. Because he asked, I have to take care of him. That is not common in society.
I was just going to say, I wish that was like common societal norms, but it's usually not.
That's what one of the things I like to say is that if back whenever Jesus was around or whatever, people would help him and follow him. But if Jesus were around today, like the same Jesus that lived 2,000 years ago, if he were around today and he were in the United States and he went up to somebody, it went up to a Christian specifically, their most likely response would be, "Hey, sorry, dude, I don't have any cash on me."
Right.
It wouldn't be it wouldn't be a loving response or anything like that.
See, that's a T-shirt.
That
is a T-shirt.
That's what I heard, is the fact that somebody walked up to me and goes, "So, what would you think if you seen a long-haired man with a dress on that wore sandals and hung out with 12 guys?"
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know how many people would actually jump to the other side and actually be like, "Are you okay, dude? Like, are you special?"
Right, but I don't know. I think you guys are bringing up something awesome because, okay, so we're talking about experiences, okay, and why people are so politically charged when it comes to certain. And by the way, when I say politically charged, I don't mean politics. I mean items in politics that are politically charged items that usually trigger people. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I know we know, but I see people pumping in and out of the live feed, so I don't want people to get confused. But the thing is the interesting thing that you were saying, Pat, about people saying, okay, so this was my experience, this is what I went through. People bring that up, and by the way, in the Christian church, it's no different, because guess what? The most powerful thing is when talking about Christ, it's your testimony. Because Sully, you can't take my testimony away, and you can't prove it wrong. Why? Because it's my testimony. Right. This is the experience that I've gone through. Mm-hmm. When getting to know Christ, this is what happened to me. I was this, and now that, that kind of thing. And going off of what you were saying, Pat, that's why that's probably, I would guess, that's why they do that, is because it's very easy to say, well, no, I had this bad experience with this, or bad taste in my mouth because of, or no, they're all just like this because I went to this one church and it was like, you can't argue, no, they weren't really like that, or no, that didn't really happen to you. You can't do that because it's their testimony. Right. This is their experience in life. And it seems like, continuing with that thought about this is their experience in life,
provide yours.
Well, not just that, but it seems like that's the identity that they're plugging into, if you know what I mean. This is the badge that I wear because this is the experience I've had.
Yeah.
But I would say, quite frankly, and I mean, forgive me for this, it's not that's not scriptural.
Yeah.
We can't look upon our own experiences or look inside of ourselves for and I'll just loosely say the answers. We can't look inside ourselves for all the answers, because of the experiences that I've had defines, my identity to some degree. Yeah. And I just had somebody hot items. No, that was biblical chili. Oh no, that's not a comment. Unless it was Tom doing that. Tom, is that you?
I think so, because I'm confused now. Tom checking in.
Pop, paradigm. Oh, Tom checking in. Tom, you're logged into Facebook as Biblical Chili, just so you know. So you're commenting on our own things. But thank you. Yeah, by the way, that's Tom Stewart. checking in. First he said hot items, and then he was coming in talking about the paradigm. What he means by that, just so everybody's aware, what he means by the paradigm is just our worldview. And the thing is, though, is like I was trying to say, is that I think we attach too much value upon our worldview. We attach too much value upon our own experiences instead of, like, I mean, scripturally speaking, we should look to the Word of God. We should look higher for the answers in life instead of just staying down here and saying, nope, what I experience is the truth. And I think that's why it's very difficult sometimes to get through to people, because it's like I said, your experience, Sully, is your experience.
Right.
Who can argue with that? Well, you can't, because this is what I experienced, this is what I did. But if you base your entire identity off of your own experiences, well, the fact is I'm sorry, colorblind people experience life slightly differently than me. And we know a couple of colorblind people at work. They're completely colorblind. They only see in black and white or just very faded colors, right? And the fact is they experience life slightly differently. So their life experience and their truth is going to be different than ours, not just because they're a different person, but because they have a different experience in life.
Right.
Yeah. The important point there, though, is that the truth and the way doesn't change. Submission to God, that doesn't change. I think testimonies are a great point to bring up whenever, as we're talking about how to approach people and sort of this generation. How do you approach people who are so hostile and so aggressive with their experience?
Right.
I mean, one is provide your experience for sure. We've seen a lot of cases of women who got abortions when they were younger, regretted it for 30 years, and now they're getting involved in intervening in young women's lives to stop them from getting an abortion because they have that experience. And that I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that yes, like experiences may vary, but the way of Christ remains the same, and that if you submit to God and you submit to Him wholly and surrender your life, then your life will change for the better in more ways than you could possibly imagine. That truth does not change whether you're colorblind or you see all the colors.
Right.
Yeah.
But once again, that truth is not the truth that's within us.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a higher, it's an external truth that never changes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
See, and I actually know a couple of people that actually have taken try to take the easy way out and for plan B. And they have actually failed both times that people have actually told me about it. And they're like, yeah, that doesn't work. I'm like, that's nice to know, but then it's also kind of like a double-edged sword for me, because it's like, okay, so you hated your kid, but now you love your kid. How can you tell me you loved your kid when you actually tried to not have your kid?
Hey, I'll tell you what. I just got done watching an entire it wasn't even a sermon. It was like an interview on by the way, a very good podcast. It's called Cooper Stuff. Highly recommend it. It was awesome. He went to an abortion. No, that wasn't abortion. What was it called? It's called they used to be called crisis pregnancy centers. That was like the thing in the 90s. That's what it was called, but it's not called a crisis pregnancy center. They called it something else. It was like a women's health center type of thing. And because it's not just pregnancy that they deal with, they actually deal with everything. And one of their things was that they said that they've never had a story where a woman was like, okay, no, I'm just going to have this child. And immediately after they had the child, they regretted it. And like, they're like, we've helped X numbers of women, and this, like, and they brought out their stats, and they're like, it never happened. Like they're like, yeah, they always, that I almost want to say emotional connection, but that the reality of the situation, weighs down on them.
Yep.
And I wish there was a lady here that could attest to this to some degree, because I've only watched 2 children being born.
Yeah. We've got 2 organizations that we work with down here in Nashville. One is Hope Beyond Abortion, and the other is Operation Saving Life. that sort of anti-abortion movement or pro-life movement here in Nashville, at least on the streets, is largely led by a guy named Scott Hord, who's a friend of ours who I think is nearing on 400 babies saved from abortion by standing out in front of a Planned Parenthood 5 days a week, 360 or almost 365 days a year. But every week.
So they're not like a clinic or anything like that. They're just going out there and visiting people and meeting people.
Yeah, so he stands in front at the entrance to the parking lot of a Planned Parenthood. Praise and God. Basically before a woman drives in there, he tries to stop her and just have a conversation with her. And so far, I think they're getting close to 400 baby saves. And he will tell you that, he provides, their organization provides everything on the backside. I mean, everything from diapers, baby food, even up to cars, vehicles and things like that. Like they will make sure that a mother is completely taken care of. And he will tell you that not a single mother out of the 400 has ever regretted having that baby. Just this weekend, we're going to go to a baby shower for a young woman who chose life that we intervened with at a Planned Parenthood. And she will tell you 100% will not regret the fact that she chose to keep that baby instead of get it aborted, So I have yet to meet a woman who is like, man, I really should have killed my kid. It is 100% of the time the complete opposite. Yeah.
Until they turn like 14, 15. And then the questioning starts happening.
Maybe.
But then they're bigger than I am and they can take me on. So although I don't know. Mommy's short upstairs and daddy's short. So I don't know what my kids are going to get. But okay, I don't know. I think that's awesome. So
I really like these foundations. Like there's quite a few that I've actually seen lately where it's actually talking about taking PTSD people and doing different things. And this one actually sounds amazing. Like I really wish that they'd branch out and go to different states. Because how many times I've heard you have to be in a certain niche to actually, and that's one of the things that I don't like, because we're going back to the society collapse and everything else, the way that everything is. But the niches around here, you have to sit there and actually go to a certain niche to support veterans, to support dogs, support these foundations that you just talked about. Because if you don't know about it, how are you going to help?
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Just hold on one second. I got a couple comments here. This was Tom, I think, chiming in. Glad to see you guys live. Miss you. We love you, Tom. At least I'm assuming this is Tom. Oh, Tom here. Okay, good. The Way met people. Okay, so I'm assuming The Way is a ministry. The Way met people and spoke to them through the individual's understanding. That's why parables are and were sources of conversation, understanding, and faith building.
The Way, they're just talking about Jesus.
Yep, being a part of the way, because back during that time, Christians, as a derogative term, they were called the followers of the way. Right? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I just, whenever comments come in, I always like to.
Yeah. I guess that just made me think. Whenever you're saying organizations have their niches, and kind of turning this whole conversation back to what we started with, which is what is the approach to go and talk to somebody about this kind of thing? I think a misconception that a lot of Christians have, and this is kind of a problem that we have across the American church, is that you have to be gifted with something to go live out the gospel in your community. You have to be, God has to speak to you directly and say, you are an evangelist before you will ever go tell somebody about Jesus. He has to come to you and say, you are a teacher before you ever go and teach your friends about the gospel. And I think that's a huge misconception in the church right now, which
Absolutely.
is, you in your neighborhood right now, you could Google, where's the closest abortion clinic? And you could go stand out front of it on your day off, and you could talk to young moms going in there and just, and have that conversation. Every time you go to a coffee shop, there's probably 10 or 15 other people who you don't know if they've ever heard the gospel or not. There's absolutely nothing stopping you from sitting down with somebody and saying, hey, do you have 5 minutes so I can tell you my story, or so I can tell you about this experience that I had, right? I think that's a really big misconception in the church, and it's why you see so little involvement from the church inside the communities, because people have placed all the responsibility on pastors. And so you just don't, just to kind of circle back to, how do you approach this whole, politically charged environment? Well, the first step is actually leaving your house or leaving your church, and going and actually talking to somebody about the gospel. It's not just going to church on Sunday,
Right.
You mean you can't stay behind a keyboard and that's the life goes?
You could try. Yeah.
You would have talked to people? Oh, go ahead.
There's this thing on Wednesdays where we going just with some moms to the park and like letting the kids play, and we'll have lunch, and like the moms talk and hang out. And every week there's like someone new there, and they start talking to you. They're like, oh, like, do you go to church? Where do you go to church? And I'm like, well, I don't go to church. Like we are, not that I don't believe in, God, like we are the church. We're having church right now, like they just think I'm crazy. Like we're having church right now. We are all believers. We're gathering together. Like we are, living in community. We're raising our kids together. We're lifting each other up, and like, it doesn't have to be this place that you go to, and like that's all it is. And yeah, they usually think I'm kind of nuts, but it's like if we just lived that all the time, like this conversation that we're having right now is, us being, the body of Christ together. Like we're, you're the hand and I'm the, the foot, and we're doing these things, and every interaction we have is like that. Then, I think the world would change so much so fast, instead of it just being this place that I go to and, oh, my job is greeting people when they walk inside, or like my job is, serving people coffee before service, or my job is watching the kids. Like it's just so much bigger than that.
Yep.
I once had a pastor, and this has never left me. This pastor, his name is David Ashrick. You can go ahead and look at him online. He's all over the place. And he said, I want to make sure I word this right. He said, often religion can be wrong, but God cannot. Religion can be wrong, but God cannot. And then another phrase he always says, he says, often religion gets in the way of God more often than anything else. Because, and I'm not saying anything about a church. I'm not talking about the assembly. I'm not talking about getting together. All those things are great. But the moment, just piggybacking off of what you guys are saying, the moment that we think, hey, it's the elders of the church that go out and visit the sick or help the people or do this. You read the first couple chapters of Acts, and you'll find out real quick it was everybody. Everybody was involved. Everybody was doing something. Pat, like exactly what you were saying about going down the street, talking to somebody, lifting them up. One of the most important things, especially when it comes to a politically charged conversation, is, and I know this is cliche, but I'm going to say it. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If they know that you genuinely want, yeah, pick it up. Come on, add the one. If they know, hey, listen, this guy actually wants to know who I am. You know what? The last time he came over, he remembered my kids' names. You know what I'm saying? Like those type of things. Then all of a sudden, something in them, breaks, and it's honestly their hardened heart. Right. Their hardened heart against you. Like, okay, so for example, and I know, and this is just, I know we've talked about this topic a couple times, but like at work, we have kind of both. We have people who are, I'll just say, of different sexual persuasions. And so they naturally, when it comes to Christians, they naturally distance themselves. They don't want to talk to Christians. They don't, because why? Because of their experiences. They've had bad experience, but all of a sudden, if you walk up to them and you just get to know them, something in their heart breaks. And then now all of a sudden I'm friends with all of them. And they realize, wow, Justin or Sully, these guys are different. Yeah, they say they're Christian, but they don't treat me like I'm a leper, and that kind of stuff. So I just, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got a couple comments here, and then we can continue on here real quick. Tom. Many have heard what the gospel isn't, or why not to get fooled. Not so many are brave enough to face the dirty mirror and listen to the good news. Hey, we know him.
Hey.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah. Relationship leads to opportunity. Oh, man, you know what, Tom? Why aren't you here, man? I just rambled for 2 minutes about this, and you could have just said that. No, that's awesome.
I mean, then it also has the vulnerability, like you're talking about. If you're actually vulnerable and you're willing to listen, that's when it actually starts to open up about this. Because we actually talked about this, I think, a while back on what is it, opening up to God. You have to have a relationship. To have a relationship, you have to have vulnerability.
Yep.
You have to actually engage. You have to be there.
Yep.
Like, these are things that I understand and I actually do. I'll be like, again, going back to the Aryan Brotherhood guy, like, a lot of people actually wrote him off as just being this bad guy. Me and him, I asked him, and I was like, all right, what is your beliefs? I'm not going to sit here and actually be downing you. I'm not going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you the fact that I actually enjoy different people that you don't like. If you don't understand what I mean, please look it up. I'm not going to sit here and say this. And I went there and I actually talked with him and I go, I understand your beliefs. I know what you're talking about because he said he's I can't remember which one it is, but it's not the actual aggressive kind of Aryan Brotherhood, but it was still an Aryan Brotherhood guy. And him and I actually got into a decent conversation about it. I was like, so how's your movement going? This and that. Why do you believe this? And what is this? And why do you like this? And many people at work actually stayed away from him because he looked like that. And I was like, I'm the one that was training him. So many people thought I was just stuck with him. No, I opened up and talked with him and got to know his story.
Yeah. That's what it takes.
Yeah. It really just all goes back to the second greatest commandment, right? Of love your neighbor as yourself. I think it's people in the church often will look at that and just say, well, that's like an idealistic goal that we can't really live up to. But at the end of the day, like, if you truly invest in someone and care about someone and get to know them, you will love them to that extent, you know. And that's kind of what I always go back to with, like, homeless ministry is a good example, I think, because you know, you fed and clothed and sheltered yourself today, but did you do it for the dude who lives, you know, 2 minutes down the street that you pass by every single day? Well, if you stopped and you actually talked to that guy, you might get an understanding of why he's sitting on the street, and you may be able to, like, provide him with support. You know, we actually did a series of videos, probably maybe 4 or 5 months ago now, and the title of the series was called Neighbors, because I wanted people to see that homeless people aren't just the person on the street you pass by begging for money. That's not who that's not who those people are.
Yeah.
Those are your neighbors. And so we sat down and we interviewed 6 different people at the homeless shelter that we help out with in town, just to share their story, to show people, like, these are the same people who could have been your brother or your cousin or whoever, you know, a family member, a friend, something like that. But something happened in their life that just, you know, as luck would have it, now they're on the streets. But you would never know that until you sat down and you had that conversation. Until then, you can put them off as, you know, another person, somebody who you don't have to care about because you don't engage with. And again, kind of going back to this whole thing, that's no different from with a homeless person than it is with somebody who is transgender, somebody who calls themselves a radical leftist or a radical conservative, or whatever you personally deem to be the other team or not on your side. You need to start by having that conversation.
See,
and that's hard for me.
Yeah.
I enjoy actually listening to him, even though the fact that, like, he says the fact that we could go down the street for our nearest abortion clinic. Justin, I'd hate to see where the nearest abortion clinic is to us.
I guarantee you it's 100 miles away from here.
If not, but more. But
It's probably closer than you think.
yeah.
I have
We're in
a
the sticks.
cousin who she lives in like north central Indiana, like in the middle. I mean, highly conservative county, middle of nowhere, like all farm around her. And she searched like abortion centers within 30 miles of me, and there was like 15 or 20. And that was in like small town, central Indiana, conservative state,
Oh,
conservative
wow.
county. Yeah,
I'm gonna look that up just because of the fact that you said that. Just
Yeah.
because.
Oh, no, now we're getting statistical.
Right. No, I'm not even getting that. It's just the fact that I like his idea on actually going, hey, what can we do to help? You want to just talk about it? Is there an issue? Why? Because it's not just, again, just opening up, asking them, hey, look up different resources, different things like that you can just actually hand people. There are so many things out there for different people. Okay, college funds, for example. Did you know the fact that you can get a college fund for having blue eyes?
Sweet. Oh, I only have one. Can I get a half college fund?
I mean, there's even ones where blonde hair and blue eyes, and I actually fit that description. Not right now.
No, not me. White hair,
Right.
blonde and green eye.
But there's like a lot of different resources that many people don't understand and don't know about that you can actually go, especially at a reach of a phone, to actually find something instead of just playing on TikTok or something dumb. Thanks, Justin. But-
Okay, I have a few comments coming in. They're flooding in now that we're getting at the top of the hour here.
Right.
Rick would like us to introduce ourselves because there's a couple of new faces. Okay, Rick, you came in a little bit late. My name is Justin. I hope you know that.
My name's Sully.
I'm Pat.
Pat, what ministry or podcast are you with?
Yeah, so we have a small ministry called Rechurch, and then part of that is a podcast called Millennial God.
Millennial God. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Susanna.
Yeah. I don't
This is
think.
Ezekiel. He's a new face.
Yeah, and that one's a new one. Very new. And one more comment. Wayne. So is this Wayne leaving the comment?
So, he
Tom, are
must
you
be.
with somebody
That's a
named
solid
Wayne?
name.
That's
Wayne? He's really short, though.
Always lead with love in all situations.
He's actually shorter than Justin.
I wonder if Tom is with Wayne.
I know. I'm kind of wondering if they are.
If you guys are, you've got to stop by the studio. We gotta say
Right.
hi.
That's some bull crap. He didn't invite me.
No,
There's another thing.
Wayne was one of our chili beans a while ago, about a year ago actually. He moved away.
Right.
Is that what you guys call yourselves? Chili beans?
No,
No.
that's what. Who was it?
Meg.
It? Meg from.
Oh, what podcast was she from? But she sent us a whole bunch of chili beans.
Yeah,
Like,
she,
like the red hot chili beans. It was great. Like, she was awesome.
we interviewed
funny.
Meg. She's a really cool podcast.
Yeah.
Right. She had a
Um,
wrestling family and everything else. It was really cool.
Yeah.
To talk with her.
Um,
But so going back
anyway,
to
go
the
ahead.
homeless thing. Okay. Not to be like, how do I want to say this, conceited and actually make this all about me or anything like that on this podcast, because it's all of us actually together. But a lot of people don't understand the fact that I was actually homeless at one point in time. It wasn't
Yeah.
of my own doing. It was because of my childhood. Like, it was, we had to live in a vehicle where it was, that's just the way it is.
mhm.
Many people wouldn't know that about me just because of the way I act or the way I am and everything else. They're like, oh, you're fine, this and that. No.
Right. But you've been through quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. It's been a fun time.
All right. So, does anybody have any last comments? We've been going for about an hour here. We normally stop off in about an hour.
Right.
So, does anybody have any last comments about just in general how to reach or how to communicate with in a politically charged world?
I think the overall message is, humble yourself enough to have the conversation and love your neighbor as yourself to the point where, you're caring enough to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I feel a little more motivated to have conversations with people everywhere all the time. Like, instead of just keeping I don't know, like giving to myself. Like I had an experience last week where someone just commented on my stroller at the grocery store, asked us about it. Then we ended up talking for like 20 minutes. You know, like she's like, "Oh, do you guys live around here? No, you go to the farmer's market? Cool, so do I. Let's be friends on Facebook. Like, let's hang out sometime." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like, and I was so inspiring because it's like, why not do that? Like, why not just strike up someone, conversation with someone in front of the like spring water aisle at Kroger? Why does it have to be
Right.
why? Yeah, it doesn't have to be like planned, or it doesn't have to be just on Facebook. Just like meet people and see them as people like you who want the same things as you, and
Right.
make these connections happen.
Awesome.
Good night.
Oh,
Oh, see you later, Rick.
yep. We'll see you later, Rick. All right, hold on. Our standard closing theme.
But just for my
Go ahead.
actually closing argument is the fact that so they brought up good points to actually talk and engage. Leave your home. Leave your home and actually go to different things. Either meaning the grocery store, the gym. I've had plenty of conversations with people at the gym. Your local sporting events and different things like that. Just because you have a niche doesn't mean somebody else doesn't have the same niche. Like four-wheeling, golf, this, shooting ranges, and everything else. There are so many different ways to actually sit there and actually engage and talk with people instead of through devices like we're talking to you now.
Yeah.
as we're stuck in a building, except for Susanna.
Still at my house though, so
We're at least next to each other. Okay,
Yeah.
Justin?
Yeah. We're at least interacting. But okay. I guess I will go ahead and close this out in a quick word of prayer and we'll sign off. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for your holy word, for your truth. And Father, I pray that all of those who have listened, watched, who have engaged with this, and all of us here, Father, please give us more opportunities that we can share the testimony of our own lives, of what you've done in our lives, Father, with other people. Please send us those opportunities, Father, and please send your Holy Spirit to give us the words to say so that people know that we actually care about them and that we ourselves can be humbled to speak with another human being. We love you so much, Father, and we pray this in your heavenly name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, this has been Justin.
This has been Sully.
Santa.
And Pat.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will see you next week at 7 o'clock, same time. Bye.